Hi, welcome to this video on the polarization of light and analyzing the results from the experiment we just did, trying to sort of investigate Malus Law. And so for this investigation, we used two different polarizing filters, and you can sort of see them there. And if you notice, when I cross them over, they make it a little bit dimmer. And as I rotate one of the filters, it gets a lot darker. And so this is because right now the two filters are both in the same plane, the same orientation. And as I rotate the second filter, we're getting, so the first filter and the second filter are out of orientation by 90 degrees. And you see that they appear black there. And so the way that we did this experiment was actually setting up one phone with a filter on one side of it with the light on, the torch, and a second phone behind this second polarizing filter. And so the second phone is actually the one that we're using the light sensor. And so what we did was we rotated this second filter every 15 degrees and measured that light, the light intensity, to sort of see what the relationship is between the angle of this secondary polarizing filter, also known as the analyzer, and the amount of light intensity that we detected. So we're going to now use Excel. And as you can see, I've sort of zoomed in on this top left-hand side of Microsoft Excel, and I'm in the cell A1. I'm just going to put a word in there, angle. And so since we used every 15 degrees, I'm going to start off with 0 and then climb up from there. So we're going to go 0, 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, and 90. So the next thing that we want to do is actually look at the cos or the cosine relationship between that angle. This will become apparent a little bit later on. So I'm just going to put a heading here, cos of angle. We're going to resize that column by just double clicking on the border between B and C. And now I need to insert a function. So I do like Microsoft Excel. It's a beautiful program, but you need to know how to use it. So I'm going to put equals cos. Microsoft Excel actually doesn't like working with degrees. It likes working with radians. So we need to sort of convert our degrees to radians. So equals cos bracket radians. And the number we want to select is going to be this one over here. And so when I type in cos of radians, I then need to use another bracket and click on cell A2. Then I'm going to close bracket, press enter. And you can see that cos of 0 is 1. Nothing too crazy there, but what we can do is we can actually grab the bottom of this cell, B2, and drag it down. And this is using the autofill function. And so if I release, you can see that it's now done that equation. So it's done the cos of A3 and converted it from degrees into radians, and I get 0.965 and so on. Now there's a problem with Microsoft Excel. Because it's doing this conversion between degrees and radians, it's actually miscalculated the cos of 90 degrees to be this really, really small value there. In actual fact, the value is 0. So to not get around this, but to fix this, we can either highlight these cells, or we can just simply click on column B and then right-click and click Format Cells. Now we're going to tell Microsoft Excel that in these cells there's a number, and we want that number to have maybe 4 decimal places. That's fine. And so you can see there, it's converted all these numbers into 4 DP, 4 decimal places, and the last number has now gone to 0, which is nice. Now, we don't just want to investigate the cos relationship of the angle, we also want to investigate cos squared. So to get that power button, you're going to look at number 6 on your keyboard there and just hold down Shift and press 6 to get that power button. So cos power of 2 or cos squared of angle. Once again, to resize this column, I'm just going to click on the border between C and D, double click, and there it is. Now we could individually square all these numbers and so forth. Otherwise, once again, we can use a function equals this cell to the power of 2. Enter. So I just use that power function above the 6 key. Now I can actually drag that cell all the way down and release, and then it autofills once again. I like to use cos of 60 to check this, because cos of 60 is a half. If you square a half, you get 0.25, and that's all pretty there. The next thing we need to do is actually enter our group data. So this is group 1, group 2, and then finally group 3. So group 1's data, as I look at it over here that I've saved, I'm just going to copy it over. Now, obviously, their highest value will be when these two filters are actually in the same plane. So we call this one 0 degrees. And as we rotate it through to 90 degrees, that will be the most minimum value. So our first one was 427, and then 394, 282, 211, 96, 21, minus 2. So minus 2 is an interesting value there, and I'm going to talk about how this group got minus 2. And the reason was, with their two filters at 90 degrees to each other, because they had this set up so close to their phone, the actual setup was blocking some of the ambient light that was hitting the filter. So it's hitting the sensor. So when they just measured the ambient light in the room, it was actually greater than the ambient light that the sensor was reading at 90 degrees. So I'm just going to leave that value there because it actually does mean something. Pretty sure the ambient light in the room was 4 lux, and I think their lowest value was 2. So they did 4 minus 2, and that's how they got their minus 2 value there. The next group here was group 2, and they got 2029. Now I've just rounded these groups' values to integers, to whole numbers. 1612, 1110, 968, 458, 96, and 7. I'm just going to move my head across here a little bit so I can access group 3, 628, 430, 213, 75, 18, 5, and 0. So now in this next part of the video, I'm just going to show you, I'm just going to hide my data here and then actually tell Microsoft Excel that this is a table. And so I can go click over here, format as table. You've got all these different pretty designs here. I'm just going to go for a nice plain one. My table has headers. Yes, it does. We've got angle, cos of angle, and so on. So I'm going to click OK. And now it's said, yep, that's a beautiful table.